It's Thursday, February 28th, Friday, March 1st, if you're on the East Coast, across the pond, or down under. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North, on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including Deep Talk Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, we have them free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, go shopping while you're listening at our Spaced Out Radio store, catch up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Nsuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses. Head to our website, click on the Nsuho banner, and subscribe today. Tonight we're going to go deep into the forests. Yes, where the trees provide the best possible camouflage for creatures of the unknown. If you've never been deep in a forest, it can be a very confusing area, believe it or not. Animals can be standing within feet of you, and you'd never know. That's why so many people annually get lost on outdoor adventures, some never making it back. But what hides within the forest is what keeps people looking. David Weatherly and Eric Altman are here tonight to discuss monsters. Monsters from Bigfoot to Dogman and every little cryptid forest dweller in between. As many of our longtime listeners know, David is a frequent guest here on the program, coming in every couple of months to talk about his weird and strange adventures, usually with a top hat on. And with his new book, Silver State Monsters, Cryptids and Legends of Nevada, it's a good time to have him back on. We're also joined by Pennsylvania Bigfoot researcher Eric Altman tonight, who has been researching the big hairy beast since 1997. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I'm going to bring you the news with the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. David Weatherly, good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my friend?
Always a pleasure, Dave. How you doing tonight?
Always good. Always good. You know what? I'm very, very convinced, to be more like you and Ross Allison, I'm going to buy a top hat. I need a top hat. You
probably do,
it's man. Just, I probably do, and I'm looking forward to it. But it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend, because the one thing I love about having you on our show, and our audience loves about having you as well, is you're so diverse in all of your exchanges with what you're looking for, whether it's things like the Ouija board and ghosts to little gnomes and Sasquatch and every UFO in between. David, what keeps the drive up for you?
I've never lost the drive. That's, I guess that's the thing. I got intrigued by this stuff when I was very young, and I've always just had a real passion for pursuing it. And every case just fascinates me. The search for answers is kind of endless, and just exploring this whole weird world, whether it's cryptids or haunted locations or UFOs or whatever, it all just really intrigues me and fascinates me. So, I can't. Somebody asked me once, what I would be doing if I wasn't doing this, and I couldn't really answer it. Man, I don't know. It's hard to conceive of something beyond this, and anything I could think of would probably be some variation on what I do. So, I don't know. I just absolutely love what I do.
Well, I don't blame you, my friend, and there's a lot of people who would love to have your life traveling around North America and the world, speaking on these topics, writing books. Do you ever run out of ideas for books? Do you ever take a break and say, I got to give myself a mental break because everything in one way or another is sounding a little repetitive?
No, not really. I take breaks just because of my travel schedule. And although I've gotten to the point where I'll write some now when I travel, like in airports and things like that. But no, not really, because there's just so many things I've explored already and so many things I'm still intrigued by. The material all, fortunately, is different and diverse enough that I can just kind of keep going.
And you brought a friend with us tonight, Eric Altman. He's a researcher out of Pennsylvania. Now, if I do know, Eric, you're also part of Butch Witkowski's UFO Cop team, are you not?
Butch and I have worked together on several cases. I wouldn't say I'm a member, at least I don't think I am. I'm a member of so many different groups and associations over the past 25 years that it's kind of hard to keep track. But Butch and I have known each other for a long, long time. I do assist him if he does need help over here in the western part of Pennsylvania with Dogman cases or creature cases or even UFO cases. You know, we keep in touch, and we've done some research together.
Yeah, Butch is a frequent guest here and a little bit of a ditty we call Strange Days. Now, I do have to admit, gentlemen, totally off topic, I'm getting ripped in one of my chat rooms here because yesterday I shaved my beard. I had a nice, healthy beard going, and I shaved it, and I've been taking a lot of flack and a lot of heat and literally been called a traitor by some of my listeners, a fur trader, actually, by some of my listeners like Tripp here, who are very offended that I shaved my beard. I apologize, but I'm taking a break during the days. I'm actually having to go back to my office job. So I'm going to be working double shift every day again for a while. So that's the reason why I shaved the beard. It has nothing to do with wanting to shave it, even though I hated it. I have to get that out, though. I had to take my daytime job back, so that's what I'm doing right now. So now that I've got that out of the way and we got the beardisms out of the way, I know the audience is going to be a little upset. They're as offended about the beard, Dave, as I am that you didn't bring your top hat up here when you were here. But you're also planning on coming back for another road trip up here. You can't get enough of this area.
I'm scheduled to in April. Yeah, Ross and I are intending to come up and explore some more things. Yeah, it's beautiful up there. Lots of mysteries to explore, but I kind of find that everywhere I go. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Eric, how did you get started in the field of Bigfoot hunting?
Wow, that goes back to 1980. My interest was sparked in a couple of pretty popular films to Bigfoot researchers and enthusiasts, Legend of Boggy Creek and The Creature of Black Lake. They were shown on Sunday afternoons on the Sunday afternoon movie and on cable television. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty interesting. I was really perplexed by the subject, especially Legend of Boggy Creek, because, here's this supposed docudrama based on sightings that took place in the late 60s and early 70s in Fouke, Arkansas. And I was just amazed that there could possibly be something running around that resembled a monster, half man, half ape or creature. They weren't really sure what it was at the time, but a lot of people were seeing it around the Fouke, Arkansas area. And that fascinated me. And from that point forward, I began to really dive deep into the literature, magazine articles, newspaper articles, books, and that sort of thing. And in 1983, I was very fortunate enough to meet a gentleman who became my mentor and is still a very dear friend and research associate, Mr. Stan Gordon. He's actually from my hometown of Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and I had the opportunity to meet him. He was doing a UFO Bigfoot display at the local mall, and my parents took me out for the weekend. And I actually got a chance to talk with Stan and ask him questions. And surprisingly, for a 13-year-old kid to meet with Stan and talk to him, he didn't brush me off. He didn't say, I'm busy, I got other things to tend to. He actually took the time and talked with me, and that really impressed me. And going forward from that point, I really just started to educate myself, study as much as I possibly could on the subject of cryptozoology, Bigfoot in particular. And ever since then, I've been immersed in it.
It is very addicting to go looking for monsters, Eric. Have you ever had any close calls?
I can't honestly say that I've been close to a Bigfoot because I didn't see what I was encountering, but I've had some pretty unusual and strange experiences in the forest of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Northern California, Washington State, just to name a few. Rocks being thrown at me by an unseen entity, hearing cries and screams that I can't identify as common wildlife, finding very large human-like footprints in the forest, especially at a sighting location. So there's been several times where I've had some pretty intriguing experiences, but I can't honestly say they were Bigfoot because, again, I didn't see what was creating those encounters.
David, I want to bring you in here for a second. A lot of people always talk about going into the forest and looking for monsters like Bigfoot or Dogman or anything anomalous or cryptid in there. What's it like being a true monster hunter? What is the thrill about it?
Oh, man. A lot of different things. I mean, the experience of the search is a big part of it, obviously, but then you have these experiences that just keep pushing you forward to find more and more. And I kind of want to emphasize too, there's something that's not talked about a lot, but there are some very real dangers to, things that people like Eric and I do. You have to learn some things about the forest. You have to, be prepared for the creatures that we do know are out there that, that can prove a danger. There's bear in a lot of territories. There's mountain lion, obviously venomous snakes in a lot of regions. So, I think you have to be conscious of a lot of those practical things, but then also kind of move beyond that. And if you're comfortable outside, being out alone or with a small group of people, then, at the very least, you can have a great experience out in nature. But to pursue the things that we do, there's always that you just go in, kind of wide-eyed and looking to see what's out there, what can you find, especially when you go to a location that, is a site that's been reported as a location of some weird encounter, and you have strange things happen. Like Eric, I've had so many numerous things occur, bizarre screams and anomalous tracks and things like that. It's always, I don't know, man. It's just really, it's a really great experience for me.
I can understand that. And, it's the thrill of the investigation and the research. I don't like using the word hunt because we're not really hunting for this creature. We're researching it. And David, in all of the areas that you have been around North America looking for this, have you ever felt that you've been close enough to prove it for yourself that it exists?
Well, I've had a couple of sightings. I thought we had talked about them before on Spaced Out. I saw one of these creatures in the Great Dismal Swamp in the 1980s. And, that was a really weird experience. I also saw, and it's much further away, but I saw one when I was out on one occasion with J.C. Johnson around the Four Corners region of the American Southwest. So, and then there's been a few other things that were, very brief and yeah, it could have been, but, that coupled with things like having, we had a huge, actually it was just a piece of a trunk of a tree thrown at us at one point into our camp. That too was at Four Corners. Had another occasion where, I had actually, we were in the Four Corners region. We were on Native American land and very remote area. We were camping out. There were 4 of us on this expedition. And it just so happened that night, this pouring rain came in. Unfortunately, I had pulled the wrong tent off my shelf, and the one I had was leaking. So the middle of the night, I wake up, there's water pouring in the tent. And I wasn't going to try to get any of the other guys up, so I'm like, geez, So I just got out of the tent, got into my Jeep, laid the seat back, went back to sleep. It was probably a good hour or so later, hour or two later, and I found myself, that state where you're sort of waking up and you're still kind of half asleep, and I just have this sense of this rocking motion. And, I got my consciousness present enough to say, wait a minute, I woke up, and I'm laying back in the Jeep, and I realized, no, the Jeep is moving, but it's kind of moving, catty-corner. And I realized that something was pressing down on the back bumper of the Jeep on one side of it and making it sort of rock like that. And, man, I I jumped up, and of course, as soon as I did, it stopped. And, we were pretty convinced that one of these creatures came up and was, I guess, knew that I was in the Jeep or something and was just kind of, I don't know what it was doing, but it was a weird experience, man.
Playing with you.
Yeah.
Eric,
but that whole
go
weekend,
ahead.
that was the same weekend that we had these huge pieces of tree, being thrown into the camp. I mean, one of them almost landed in the fire, which was kind of funny. We were joking, well, it's trying to add wood to the fire or something. But I mean, this was a huge piece of wood. It's not something, to one of us could drag it, to two of us to pick it up really well. We couldn't. It's not something one of us could have thrown.
Eric, in regards to the potential of Sasquatch in the state of Pennsylvania, how many reports a year are you dealing with?
It varies. There's years where we're inundated with sightings, like this past year, 2018, we had a slew of sightings that Stan and I investigated together, and I did a couple investigations on my own. And then there's years where it's slow. You get one or two reports. There's so many researchers in Pennsylvania that are fielding reports. It's hard to gauge a number of how many reports are coming in. But me personally, it varies from year to year. There'll be some years where we get a lot. Like I contributed a chapter to David's book, Wood Knocks Volume 2, talking about a flap of sightings that occurred in 2009. And we literally had almost close to 30 sighting reports that year. And that was probably the most that I've been investigating for the past 21 years I've been doing this. And there are other years there's one or two that I hear about or somebody contacts me about. So it's really hard to gauge a number, but it's never a year has gone by where there hasn't been a report submitted.
Is it a place where you think that it, like here on the West Coast, we tend to believe that, if there's forest around and a big mountainside, there's Sasquatch in there. Is it the same way in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania is a very unique state where a lot of people just think it's big cities and suburbs and it's populated, and it really isn't. I mean, the northern part of the state, from central Pennsylvania north, is very heavily forested. And in the section I live in, western Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania, there are the Appalachian Mountains run through the state, and I live on the western ridge of the Appalachian Mountains. So we have a lot of diverse terrain, forests, farmlands. There's ample habitat for this creature to live, survive, and hide in, ample food sources. People would be pretty amazed if they came to Pennsylvania. David's been to Pennsylvania a couple of times, and he can attest to how diverse the terrain and area is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's some really rugged parts to the state, and it's funny what Eric's talking about really could apply to almost every state in the country. There's this misconception that, especially from people that live in cities, that, all these creatures can't be out there because they would be seen, by hundreds of people. There's, we all live in cities and so forth. And actually a good portion of people, they don't really go much outside of their zone, in terms of the city they live in or grew up in. Maybe they'll go down to the local park or something like that. But, there's so much territory in the United States, and of course even more so in Canada, that really does not see humans on a daily basis. There's some areas that go for months, maybe years, with no one walking across that piece of land. So I think that if people would kind of get out more outside of those zones a little bit more and see how much undeveloped land and country we have in the United States and Canada too, they would realize, wow, there actually is a lot of territory out there where these creatures could be hiding.
And David, you brought up a good point earlier on that the majority of people actually going out into the wilderness are not doing their investigations of what kind of animals, what kind of terrain are in the area they are going. I mean, that should be safety 101, but it's amazing how many people actually forget that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess you would call them Bigfoot enthusiasts, and, some of them simply go out to area campgrounds and things like that and camp out and tromp around the woods a little bit, and that's okay. There might be areas where sightings have happened, but if you're going out into areas that are really unexplored, even national parks and things like that, where there's a lot of raw land, you need to be conscious of the safety factors. And of course, being aware of what animals are out there, you have to educate yourself anyway so that you can understand, okay, what did I just hear? Some of these animals, a great example is a fox. A fox can make a lot of different sounds, that the average person just doesn't hear. And when you go to areas that have larger game, like elk and things like that, some of the sounds these creatures make, if you're not familiar with them, some people might leap to the conclusion, oh, I heard a weird sound, it's got to be a Sasquatch. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Let's look at it very carefully. Let's listen to it very carefully and see if it compares to anything else. Some of the things, I get a lot of people sending me recordings, and one of the most common things probably that I hear that people can't explain is an owl. There's some sounds that owls can make that are very kind of chilling. If you're out in the middle of nowhere by yourself or late at night or something, you hear the sound, and it's not just the typical, hoot, hoot, but there are other sounds that some of these creatures can make too, that if you're not familiar with them, you may assume that it's something a bit more outside of the norm.
Eric, we got about 45 seconds here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. When you are in the wilderness of Pennsylvania, do you find that a lot of people who are researching out there are ill-prepared for the elements?
Oh, without a doubt. You got to do your homework first. You got to learn the terrain, learn the animals, as David said. You got to understand what's out there, and you got to understand weather, what kind of weather to expect, and be prepared for it when you go out, because if you're ill-prepared, you're not going to be successful in your research.
Yeah, it's very, very tough indeed. You do have to be careful. And that's something that we try to profess around here. Know your area, know where you're going. And by goodness, always tell somebody where you're going. If you're heading out Bigfooting, go tell somebody where you're going, just in case you get a flat tire or something worse. People know where to find you. David, Eric, you guys hold on. David Weatherly and Eric Altman tonight. We're talking monsters in the forests all night on Spaced Out Radio. It's going to be a good one. Stay tuned for the second half hour coming up right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Hi, George Norrie here. Are you ready for UFO MegaCon, the immersion event? 7 days, 8 nights, 50 new speakers, UFO military witnesses, experiencer groups, skywatches, and so much more. Join me at UFO MegaCon, March 24th through the 30th in Laughlin, Nevada. Truly the one and only new information conference of the year. Now check it out at UFOMegaCon.com. That's UFOMegaCon.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject, from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio. or our website, including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters in the frozen Canadian tundra. We're talking Bigfoot tonight, but before we bring in David Weatherly and Eric Altman, I want to remind you, you can all head to our website while you're listening, spacedoutradio.com. Click on the shop banner. Great way to support this show is to head off to the store. Get yourself a t-shirt, a hat, a hoodie, and so much more. So make sure you check it on out. David Weatherly comes on this show every second month to talk everything weird and strange. You never know what he's talking about. Brought along his buddy and a good friend of this show now, Eric Altman, who's a Sasquatch researcher out of the state of Pennsylvania. We are talking monsters tonight. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Not a problem. Right before the break, we were talking about safety and going in. Now, during the break, I was filling in Eric about the situation that we had with my buddy Bazooka Joe and Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada, where we heard some talking in the background. And David, you actually brought up this scenario where you brought up this term samurai talk. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so there's a catchphrase, samurai chatter, and it's been used to describe what people believe is a language that Bigfoot uses to communicate with each other. And, you know, it was Eric and I were just talking about, I believe it was Ron Moorhead who originally came up with this term related to a famous recording called the Sierra Sounds. So these locations all over the United States, there are people who have witnessed or at least heard these creatures, and they described these sounds that these Sasquatch are making as something that sounds similar to Japanese, a very guttural language that sounds like there are words in there, but no one who's heard it personally has really been able to identify exactly what's being said. And along the way, this term samurai chatter got applied to it. But it's just very curious because if these creatures are intelligent, you know, then they obviously have some way to communicate, whether it's just by simple sounds or maybe it's something more complex, like a language that, you know, I don't know whether it's related to Japanese, but that's what a lot of people identify it as.
Yeah, very interesting, because the sound that we heard that day, it literally sounded like the sound of a mumbling man, kind of like kind of thing. And Mike and I heard it clear as day. Now, Bazooka Joe, who was probably 30 yards to our left, he didn't hear it at all. And we actually yelled over at him and asked if that was him talking. And he's like, no, I've been silent. And so to have that happen was very, very intriguing to happen. Or to have happen right in front, because all of a sudden it kind of adds to the mystery. Is it part of the paranormal lore that is around this crash site where we were investigating, where 56 people died, or is it something else? Eric, now you believe that this sound has been reported all around North America.
Yeah, I've talked to many eyewitnesses, enthusiasts, Bigfoot researchers, fellow researchers, and it's been shared quite frequently, more so than you'd probably believe. People talk about hearing, like you mentioned, that mumbling type of sound. Like it's almost disembodied voices. You don't know where it's coming from because you don't see a person doing it, but people describe that, and very similar to that samurai chatter. And there have been numerous accounts here in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, people hearing that language. They can't decipher what it's saying or who or what kind of entity is making that sound, but they describe it as a mumbling or some kind of language that they can't interpret. And it's interesting because there was a crypto linguist, and David, you could probably help me out with this. His name escapes me, but He was a cryptolinguist for the military, and he tried to decipher some of the language that was recorded by Ron Murphy. And he actually said there were syllables and consonants he was able to pick out of that language. So whatever was recorded in that language was actually making some kind of communication. It was a language that he couldn't decipher, but it's commonly reported.
Yeah, it is. And, there's a funny story about that, too, Dave. A few years ago, I had a woman who described hearing this sound. And when I met with her on one occasion, what I had done was I took, 3 or 4 clips from movies. I had them on my laptop, undubbed movies of other languages. And I just played them without her being able to see the film or anything. I just played the audio track, and I asked her, I said, do any of these sound similar to what you were hearing? Because she was adamant that she was hearing something that sounded like it was a language, like there were words in there, but she said it wasn't a language that she could understand. So, I played her several tracks, and I played her German and, a couple of diverse language. And sure enough, she said, when I played a clip from an old samurai movie, and she said, no, that's it. That's what it sounded like. And it was just kind of curious, to hear somebody else say, yeah, that's kind of what it sounded like. But she said the same thing that Eric described. She said, but they sounded like they were mumbling, or it was very low tone. So I couldn't even distinguish, try to repeat one of the words or anything. So it was very interesting. And incidentally, the person you're talking about, Eric, I believe would be, now it's slipped my Scott Nelson.
Yes, thank you.
Who did some articles, actually did a book, I believe, about the cryptolinguistics applied to Sasquatch.
I think it's absolutely incredible to be able to, even reminisce about listening to the Sierra Sounds by Ronald Moorhead, and the fact that other people are having this experience in hearing this communication. In regards to that type of talk, is that quite familiar, Eric, that people are having this when they are within a close vicinity? Or is this something that's maybe echoed off of trees? Have we been able to figure that out?
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to figure that out. When I've talked to eyewitnesses who've had an experience or a sighting, and they've described hearing that language, it's come from the forest around them. They can't exactly pinpoint from where it's coming from. They'll say, oh, I heard it in the woods, or I heard it in the valley, or up on that ridge. And I ask them, did you see what made it? Do you see the person? Do you see people in the woods? Because I want to rule out the human element. And they always say, no, we didn't see anybody. We were the only one in the woods that day. And it was making this sound that didn't sound human, but yet it sounded like some kind of language. So there's no real way, unless we're able to record it or be at that location and hear it, to tell exactly where the sound was coming from when the witness experienced it.
Now, David, have you heard these sounds yourself?
I haven't heard those sounds, no. Not anything that sounds close enough to Japanese that I could say, yeah, that's the samurai chat or something. Which is kind of frustrating, because I've been around a lot of Japanese people. I've been to Japan, myself a few times, and I would like to hear it, because I would think maybe I have a little bit more of an ear to say, okay, that does indeed sound like Japanese. But no, I have not myself.
How about you, Eric? Have you heard it?
Not the Japanese. I've heard what sounded like male voices, and to me it sounded like someone had marbles stuffed in their mouth and was trying to talk, but they couldn't speak a language. It was like a kind of language that I was hearing, and I don't know what it was and what made it, but I've heard that on a few occasions while out researching.
That kind of a thing I've heard, and it almost has I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, Eric, but almost like a watery quality, like somebody trying to say something with, in the water or something.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
Gentlemen, we get a lot of stories around here from people who talk about aggressive Sasquatch, talk about Sasquatch being very docile. David, you've investigated both sides of this continent in regards to this creature. Do you see a difference between the East Coast version and the West Coast version?
In terms of their behavior, no, I don't think so. Not right off from my experience. I've had aggressive reports from the East Coast, from the West Coast, the Southwest, Canada, and then likewise, I've had other reports that they just seem very, sort of calm and docile, and like an animal that just wants to be left alone.
How about you, Eric?
I'd agree with that. Yeah, we get reports of various types of behavior with these creatures. The majority of them are docile reports, or a fleeting glimpse, or an encounter where the creature quickly exits the opposite direction. Although we do get an occasional report of the creature being more aggressive, throwing rocks, or, like David mentioned earlier, the logs or big sticks at people. And I think that's more of a territorial thing, where it's trying to drive the person away, kind of get them to leave that territory. But I haven't received any reports of a Bigfoot attacking a person. I've heard of bluff charges where they seem to quickly approach the person but then back off at the last second. But nothing where they physically attacked or harmed anyone.
A lot of people who are spiritual, Eric, they look at this creature and they hear stories, especially if they've talked to First Nations people, where if they're showing respect for the area, the land, the creatures, that the creature becomes more docile towards them. However, if you have people who are, firing guns at bears or chasing away birds or whatever it may be, that's where people complain about getting pelted by rocks or the cabin or the huts that they are in being shaken or have rocks thrown at them again. Have you heard this type of similarity as well?
Yes and no. For some people, the hunters especially, have had rocks thrown at them. I can see where that situation might have arisen. And there's other cases where, there's just people hiking in the woods for recreation. They're not harming anything. They're not causing any issues, or camping, or just spending time outdoors and have rocks thrown at them or sticks thrown at them. That kind of semi-aggressive behavior done, but. It's weird because you mentioned the Native Americans all believing that this is a docile creature, and that's not necessarily the case. A lot of the tribes revered this creature and were afraid of it. They warned their children not to go into the forests because of the hairy man would get them. So there's various tribes that do find a peaceful coexistence with the creature, and they felt it was like another tribe, a big brother, if you will. And there are other tribes that are terrified of this creature and warned their fellow tribesmen and children to stay out of the forest, stay away from these creatures. So I guess it's kind of territorial where the tribes are located. David, you could probably add to that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think really when you go back in tribal lore with a lot of Native American tribes around the United States, they have a history of being at war with these creatures. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes it trickles down as a, quote, legend, but when you really start examining and delving into it, I examined very closely the Paiute conflict with what they called the Sitika, that happened in their oral tradition. And, when you delve into these stories, you have to try to, as best as you can, to look at it from their cultural perspective and understand, what they're explaining. A lot of people discount these stories and say, oh, that's just folklore, it's just, myths. And no, it's not. When you talk to the tribal elders, they'll tell you, no, these are things that we experienced, that our ancestors experienced, and that's why we remember it. In the case of the Paiutes who lived in northern Nevada, they had a situation where these creatures, which, as I said, they called the Sitika, were raiding the tribe. And they would come in, they called them red-haired giants. And they said these creatures would come in and they would snatch up the elderly, they would snatch up children, women, warriors or hunters that got caught, out on their own. They would take them and they would place them in these baskets, and the basket was woven but the design was such that it had spikes pointing down inside the basket, so it made it impossible for the victim to escape. And they would cart their victims up into the mountains where they would devour them. So, we essentially have this story about this race of these cannibal giants that are preying on the tribe. And according to Paiute lore, it got to the point where other tribes were being hunted by these creatures also. So these tribes banded together, and they decided to do something about this. They chased these creatures down into a location in Nevada that is now called Lovelock Cave. And they trapped these creatures inside. They tried to goad them into coming out and fighting essentially in an honorable way, but these things wouldn't do this. So the warriors piled brush up in front of the cave, covered the entrance over, and lit it up and burned these things. Now, there's a lot of facets to this whole legend because there are stories about what was found in the cave and in present day and so forth. I've been in Lovelock Cave myself, and it's a fascinating location. There was extensive archaeological work done in the cave. There's legends about giant skulls that were in there that disappeared, part of the whole conspiracy that the Smithsonian confiscated artifacts. But, all of that stuff, even if we set all of that aside, there are some very intriguing things about this cave. One is that they did record that they found 15-inch sandals in this cave. Now, I've told some people this story, and they say, well, there's people now that wear 15-inch shoes, Well, yeah, in modern times, maybe a few basketball players, but we're talking about, 1800s or earlier. The tallest people were probably, 5'5", 5'6", in that range. These Paiutes were not wearing 15-inch sandals. There's no reason for them to be in that cave. But even beyond that, I talked to a whole string of Paiute elders who told me something very interesting, and it's this. Archaeologists are adamant that the Paiutes used those caves, that they lived in them, and that the artifacts they found related directly to the Paiutes. Paiute tradition says absolutely not. We did not use those caves. We did not live in those caves. And, of course, mainstream scientists say, no, we figured that out. The Paiutes were living in there. But you've got all the people saying, no, we didn't. So then you have to step back and say, okay, well, what exactly went on? What was it? Who was it that was in those caves? And it's such a fascinating legend. And one thing that is really intriguing about it is that it is repeated around the West. There are other confrontations with very similar creatures. There was a confrontation in Idaho. The story is almost exactly the same. There's some variations. I recently found one from tribes in the American Southwest, way further down in Arizona, some tribal lore that says they had a situation with these, what they call giants that were preying on them, and that they had to fight them. So, this battle is either something from a time when the tribes were all much more interconnected, or at some point there were these other creatures that were, confronting the tribes and possibly preying on them. And a lot of these Native Americans reached a point where they were sick of it and did something about it. So it's really fascinating to delve into this stuff, and that's one of the things I try to do. I try to go into the folklore, I try to go into the native traditions and find some of this early knowledge, because frankly I think some of the answers lay in that.
We got about 2 minutes here before we got to go to break. Eric, when you listen to the past when it comes to Sasquatch, how important is reliving those experiences through First Nations or American Indians to try and discover some sort of patterns to what you are looking for today?
Oh, David was absolutely right. You have to research our past to learn more about these creatures, because our native First Americans were... They knew about these creatures. They talked about them. They still talk about them. They share the legends and lore. Even if they're, to us today, are nothing more than folklore, there's an element of truth to that folklore. And you have to go back and research, because you can learn a lot about the behaviors, patterns, the territories, what these tribes were dealing with. Like here in the East Coast, we had the Iroquois Nation that dealt with these creatures called the Genasquah, and that translates to Stonish Giant, where they had conflicts with these giant cannibalistic, like they called them tribal Indians, much bigger than they were. And you learn about these things. You learn about where they were, the territories, the history. There's so much to learn from our First Nation elders and tribes that are very vital to research today.
I would agree with you on that. And even up here where I live, the First Nations believe that there is some sort of indiscretion with this creature. It doesn't choose sides. It doesn't really want to be a part of anything that is society motivated. It just kind of hangs out in the forest, the jungles, whatever you want to call it. It wants to be on its alone time. And yet you hear of the stories about the First Nations telling their women especially, do not go out after dusk, because when the dusk comes, the wild man comes. And that's the real danger of it all in regards to whether or not some of these people are actually being taken by Sasquatch. Hard to believe. It really is. David Weatherly is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, along with Eric Altman. You can always go to David's website, twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. He's got a brand new book out called Silver State Monsters, Cryptids and Legends of Nevada. I thought that was just gambling. No monsters there. Well, I guess in the north. And Eric Altman's website is ericaltman.net if you want to check them both out. Great researchers, because, you know, we try and bring the good guys on here all the time, and I think that's what we are doing. More talk on Bigfoot. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of Dogman as well in the next hour. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio coming up next.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Hi, George Norrie here. Are you ready for UFO MegaCon, the immersion event? 7 days, 8 nights, 50 new speakers, UFO military witnesses, experiencer groups, skywatches, and so much more. Join me at UFO MegaCon, March 24th through the 30th in Laughlin, Nevada. Truly the one and only new information conference of the year. Now check it out at UFOMegaCon.com. That's UFOMegaCon.com.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is Watching.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, our Keith Andrews is back for the ET Connection. Talking all things extraterrestrial. Starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, we get the woo going at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates. KDUN, AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. KZFX, 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. WQEE, 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And UPRN, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, hi to everyone listening in on Revolution Radio and Deep Talk Radio as well. Don't forget, you can check out all of our archives for free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor and hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Sesquipedalian. Sesquipedalian is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, go shopping while you're listening at our Spaced Out Radio store, pick up some swag. It's a great way to support this show. And, of course, you can always head off to read up on the SOR Newswire provided by our news director, Captain Shirk, and so much more. David Weatherly and Eric Altman are our guests tonight on Spaced Out Radio. You can find David's website at twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. That's twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. Eric's website is ericaltman.net. That's ericaltman.net. We're talking monsters tonight. And, gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Eric, I want to start off with you here in regards to the belief system of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it. And I know that there are a bunch of different names that people call this creature. But there are a large contingent of the population out there, whether they're scientific or whether they're just mainstream people who don't really delve into the whole paranormal aspect of everything, who do not believe this creature is real, that it actually exists, even though there's hundreds, if not thousands, of sightings across this continent each and every year. How do we convince those people that there is something out there?
Well, I don't think you can convince those people unless they have a personal experience, or you can put a dead or live Bigfoot in front of them. I don't think any matter of number of tracks, sounds that you play, video footage or pictures, even the Patterson film, people doubt that's real. The Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967. So I think the only way to convince people is to allow them to have their own experience and put them in that circumstance and right place, right time for them to see a creature for themselves or to have a Bigfoot dropped in their lap. I think that's the only way to convince people, even the scientific community. That's the only way to convince them that the creature is real, is to present a physical, either part of a specimen or the full specimen itself.
Well, that would include a body, and yet we haven't been able to find one. David, you've ran across quite a few critics over your years of researching this. Why is the evidence presented, whether it's hair sample, scat sample, or the footprints that we have found, maybe handprints that have been found, why does that just not seem to be enough to convince people that there is something anomalous walking around the forests?
Well, I think it's a case where, like Eric says, there's a large contingent of people that just absolutely won't believe unless they have a body at their feet. And, that's, you're always going to have that. We have that with all aspects of this field. There's always a large contingent of people who are in a way, just as adamant as the believers. You know, they say, no, it's impossible. You know, we know about all the known animals. You know, we know all the country. We know what's there, and you know, that's the part I kind of find laughable. But you know, one of the fascinating things about cryptozoology is that over the years we do have these situations where these animals, you know, that the mountain gorilla at one point was a myth, and you know, people just thought that was a ridiculous story, but it was proven to be true. You know, all the lore and the tribal tales and everything else. So yeah, these creatures really are up there. So, you know, I think with Sasquatch, it's just a matter of time before something like that happens. The whole thing with as they called it, the kill or no kill debate, you know, really kind of raged through the field for, I don't know, a good couple of years now. It seems to have calmed down now. But there was so much talk about how we would never be able to prove this to people until we had a body. And, you know, just from my personal perspective, I'm not out to try to prove it to people. So I don't feel hampered by that in the same way some researchers do, I guess.
You definitely need an open mind for this, David, if you were doing it. And for the people out there who are amateurs at this, and I would consider myself an amateur of this as well, when we go out into the forest, do we go in with a skeptical mind of not trying to find the creature, or should we be going in looking for the anomalous signs that we might not normally recognize if we're taking a stroll through a forest?
You know, my personal approach is I always try to approach these things as from an investigative approach, you know, as maybe a journalist would do. And you have to, in order to do that, I think you have to be kind of a mix of both of those things. You certainly can't walk into the woods and accept every single thing that you see has signs of anomalous activity. But you shouldn't discard unusual things either and say, no, that can't be, you know, it's got to be a raccoon or something. So I think, you know, first and foremost, if you're getting involved in researching Sasquatch, as we spoke about earlier, you need to understand and learn about the terrain that you're searching in. You know, most people are going to conduct this research in their local region, so it should be fairly simple to learn about the local wildlife, you know, all the plants and animals and everything as much as you can, and especially the sounds that those animals make, and go in with that level of awareness. That's going to take you a long way right off the bat.
Eric, when we talk about this creature and we talk about the way that a lot of people out there do not think it exists, do you think it's mainly city folk who are sitting there saying that there's no way this creature could be possible, or is it people in the country who are making these claims? Because I know I live in a rural area, and there are a lot of people in my area who believe about Sasquatch. And it seems like when you go to these smaller communities, there's more belief added to it, whether it's people that they know who've had sightings, because in a lot of small communities, there's still those towns out there where everybody knows everybody's business. And yet, if you go into the larger sectors, the cities, the suburbs, that's where we see a lot of the critiques happening that, oh, that's just garbage, that's just crap, that doesn't exist.
It's really a hard question to answer, because I've seen it from both spectrums. You know, I've talked to hunters who've spent their entire lives in the outdoors and never had an experience or seen anything, and they're very skeptical. But I've also talked to the people who live in suburbs and cities that, you know, they're just as skeptical, or maybe they are open to it because they've watched it on TV or read newspaper articles, or, you know, have that interest in it. So it's kind of a hard question to answer, because I've talked to people on both sides of the coin. People that do believe, then they've heard the stories passed down through their family, or, you know, they've heard of, you know, going to the local bait and tackle shop where they've talked to other fishermen or other hunters or outdoorsmen, and they've had experiences. So it's really kind of a hard question to answer.
Well, you know,
I will add something to that, though. You know, and that's that. Eric brought up a great example earlier when he mentioned Falk, Arkansas. That was a small community where a whole rash of sightings occurred, and the people in the community knew about it, talked about it. Now, in that particular situation, of course, the story got out, so to speak, and of course it was later made into a movie. But, from my experience traveling so extensively, there are so many little towns. I'm convinced almost every small town has some kind of a local legend, whether it's a haunting or a story about a UFO or, a ghost light or sometimes a cryptid. And, I've been in these areas where it's a small community and, yeah, everybody knows about, the monster, whatever. There's always like some kind of local name usually applied. Oh, the monster of such and such, that showed up in the 70s and, 42 people saw it over the course of 3 weeks. You hear these stories, but so many of them, they don't really go outside of that little community. It's just a quiet part of that small town experience that occurred at some point, but it's left there unless somebody comes along and researches it and really digs into the sightings. So I've experienced uncovering some of those things in the past, and it's pretty fascinating because you find that there is a different level of acceptance amongst a lot of those people. You'll still find a few here and there that, I don't believe that. That's a story that, my grandfather used to tell or something, but it's probably, it's probably just a tall tale. But then you'll find a different attitude amongst much of the population, and they just sort of accept it as, oh yeah, that happened here.
This creature, which we are looking for, there are some great stories out there that people have had encounters with. Eric, in all the investigations that you have done, are there any stories that you have been told by eyewitnesses that really stand out for you that you could share with our audience?
Wow. Yeah, there's so many stories that I've talked to really credible people, police officers, military people who are in the military. Here's one from this happened in 2007 in just outside of Ligonier, Pennsylvania. There was an individual who fought in the Iraq War and was wounded, military personnel, and he suffered from PTSD pretty badly and couldn't sleep at night. So the only way to find relief was to go out and fish, and that's what he could get away from modern technology, get away by himself where it was peaceful, where it was tranquil. Went out fishing, and he went to a spot unbeknownst to him in the Loyal Hannah Creek in the Ligonier, Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania area, where there had been recent sightings in the past. And he went out there fishing one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he threw a line in the water, and he was just kind of scanning the creek up and down, and he saw a figure standing on the opposite shoreline, just off the shoreline itself in the water. And he yelled out to the figure, "Hey, buddy, how you doing tonight? Any luck?" And the figure didn't answer him. So he kind of walked up the shoreline a little ways towards it and out into the creek with a flashlight, got closer to the figure and shined a flashlight right on this very large figure that turned out not to be a human being, but an actual creature that raised its arm up to cover its face from the blinding light. And he could see the hair hanging down off of the arm of the creature that stood there in the creek where he was fishing, not just yards away. And he was just kind of stunned and shocked at what he saw. And the creature turned and walked off into the darkness and left him standing there flabbergasted. And this guy, he saw the horrible tragedies of war, buddies that were killed in Iraq, and some of the people over there in Iraq that were injured in the war. And he said there's nothing that he saw in the war that could even compare to what he saw standing in the creek. And it left such a mark on him that it really shook him up. We talked with him for a long time. He took us back to the location where the sighting happened. And there are people who have experiences like that, that there's so many that I've talked to over the years, credible people who've never had an interest in Bigfoot, never had an inkling that such a thing existed, and had their whole lives turned upside down by that one chance encounter. Some fascinating stories that I've heard over the years, too many to relate in the time that we have tonight.
How about you, David? Is there a story that someone's told you that really kind of set you back, or that really stood out?
I've got a great recent one that I think you'll really appreciate, Dave, just because of the weirdness and because of something you mentioned earlier. You made a mention about my new book on cryptids in Nevada and how most of them were probably up north. That's not entirely true. This story is just kind of it's one that really makes you scratch your head. 1980, the Nevada test site. Now, the Nevada test site, for those who don't know, just like it sounds, it's a region where the Atomic Energy Commission back in the day tested nuclear weapons. And if you ever see any old footage of, like from the 1950s, it used to be a thing to kind of go out and watch the mushroom cloud off in the distance when atomic tests were being done. People just had no concept of the dangers of the radiation and everything else. So for a long time, the Nevada test site was used for that. So in 1980, here's this, super secure site, government site. And what do they get? They get a report that a Sasquatch is walking across the Nevada nuclear test site. Wow. These guys didn't know quite how to deal with this. They took the report as from a very reputable person. They called security. They had security go out to the site. And, the guy who spotted the creature, he was a Mormon bishop. And, he's, of course, never drank, never did anything else like this. Nothing like this ever happened to him. He called this report in. Security goes out and checks. What does security find? They find these anomalous tracks, these extremely large footprints that go exactly in the direction that the driver said the creature was going. They go off into the desert, and they just disappear. Now, the story gets a little bit stranger because the news wires got a hold of this story, and it was reported, a bit in the media back then. The guy who was the information officer at the test site at the time, his last name was Jackson. Well, Jackson is fielding all these calls from people asking about this Bigfoot sighting. So as he states, he said that just when he thought the calls couldn't get any stranger, they did. Because he gets a call one day, and the guy on the other end of the phone, the first thing he says is, "You're not going to believe a word I'm going to tell you." And Jackson's like, okay, he's probably thinking, oh, here we go with another one. So this guy proceeds to ask Jackson a couple of questions about the sighting. And he says, he asks Jackson, he says, well, what happened to the tracks, and which direction was this creature heading? So Jackson tells him, well, the tracks went off into the desert and disappeared. The creature was heading east. So the gentleman replies, well, whenever we have a sighting of a Bigfoot that's heading east away from our location, and this guy was calling from California, he says, there's going to be an earthquake within 24 hours. So, this is a government employee, Jackson's thinking, okay, all right, well, basically thanks for your call or whatever. But guess what happens the next day? There's a report of a 6.8 earthquake in Owens Valley, California, which on a map would be a line across and equates to the direction the creature was moving away from.
Wow. Very intriguing. We hear a lot of that about animals moving away right before natural disasters. We've seen it in this area with the forest fires. But to equate a Bigfoot sighting with a massive earthquake like that, That is totally intriguing.
It's very curious.
Extremely. That just trips me out. Especially to be near a bombing range and a nuclear test facility. That just seems right out of the ordinary. Maybe that's why they got so big. I got a couple questions here, as we got about 3 minutes before we go to break here. Our audience is going to jump in here. We're going to start with Bill. And once again, Dave, you met Bill Hauser when he was up here for the Paracon. So this is his question, and he is asking, do you guys use parabolic microphones on investigations for Bigfoot sightings in analyzing audio data?
Now, I'll give a quick answer, and then Eric can weigh in. First of all, hey, Bill, good to hear from you. Absolutely, yeah. Parabolic mics are, I think, one of the essential tools out in the field to record audio and try to capture some of these sounds, especially the things we were talking about earlier.
How about for you, Eric?
I use them too when I do research. I have a couple different sizes. I have one, the size that, if you recall, if you ever watched a football game, they used to use them on the sidelines. I have one about that large. The sports teams used to use. I have a handheld one and one that's a little bit larger than that. And they do produce pretty interesting results. You can hear for a good distance, and it really kind of helps to weed out common wildlife sounds versus something that you can't explain.
Exactly.
And another question coming in from Goddess Michelle on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and she is asking, what about giants? Are we looking at these giants? Could they be the giants that are in the Smithsonian that we hear so much about?
You know, I referred to that a little bit earlier when I was speaking about the legend of the Sitka, and what I have found in my travels is that there's a lot of sort of crossover. You know, there's all this old quote giant lore all over the country, and then you also find these legends of what appear to be Sasquatch type creatures, but referred to as giants by the Native Americans, because, you know, to them these creatures were giants because they were 7 feet tall or more. So they were very large creatures compared to, you know, a 5'5" Native American. And it's one of those intriguing puzzles to try to put all these pieces together. You know, got all the conspiracies about missing giant bones and things like that, and then blend it in with these Native American legends of these giant creatures. So, you know, it's very difficult to say. I think that possibly there were two different things going on there, but then there was also some crossover. As with a lot of the things we explore, there's often not one singular answer that fits all of the cases.
Very true. And gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on there. We're going to step out for a break here at the bottom of the hour. David Weatherly and Eric Altman are our guests tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking Bigfoot. We're talking monsters of the forest. If you want to check out David's new book, it's Silver State Monsters, Cryptids and Legends of Nevada. You can get it at twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. We'll be back with more SOR after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Story Box. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hi, George Norrie here. Are you ready for UFO MegaCon, the immersion event? 7 days, 8 nights, 50 new speakers, UFO military witnesses, experiencer groups, skywatches, and so much more. Join me at UFO MegaCon, March 24th through the 30th in Laughlin, Nevada. Truly the one and only new information conference of the year. Now check it out at UFOMegaCon.com. That's UFOMegaCon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Always a pleasure to be broadcasting you from the captain's chair at SOR headquarters right here on the frozen Canadian tundra. Don't forget, while you're listening to the show, a great way to support us is by going to our Spaced Out Radio store, picking up some swag for your liking. Get t-shirts, hats, hoodies, you name it, we got it. Even a coffee mug for you. What the heck? Right there on our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. Tonight we are talking monsters of the forest. David Weatherly is with us along with Eric Altman. Eric's website is ericaltman.net. That's ericaltman.net. David Weatherly's website, twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. I'll give it to you once again, twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you coming on.
Our pleasure.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Now, during the break, you were teasing, Eric, that you had a couple of real recent stories that are really high up on the woo factor here.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier in the program, I've had the pleasure of working very closely with longtime UFO Bigfoot researcher in Pennsylvania, Stan Gordon. And I've known Stan since 1983, going on, 38 years, something like that. I lost track. But he calls me up when he gets a case, and he and I go out and investigate together. We'll go out and talk to the witness, look for evidence and whatnot. And we've had some really off-the-wall cases come in this year. And one, we had the actual opportunity to meet with the eyewitness and his father and take us to the location. And that involved a 17-year-old young man who was driving home from the place he was working at that night, about 9 o'clock in the evening. And it was raining, so he had his wipers on. And he was driving on a backcountry road, a fairly steep hill with a curve at the top of the hill. And he wasn't driving fast because he knows it's a pretty sharp bend. And with the weather being what it was, he didn't want to speed and take a chance of wrecking the car. So he got to the top of the hill. And as he crested the hill and turned to the right where the road bends, he saw a figure standing on the left side of the road where he was traveling in that direction. And this creature began to move quickly into the roadway and forced this young man to slam his brakes on. And he came literally within 5 to 10 feet of almost hitting this creature. And it stopped in the middle of the roadway, and it glared at him with these glowing, bright red eyes. And he was overcome with a sense of dread and fear. He said this thing looked just pure evil as it was staring at him. It was very tall, dark in color, covered in hair, long arms hanging down, standing there looking at him. And he was just kind of shocked at what he had seen standing right there in front of him. Well, after a few seconds, the creature continued across the roadway and walked up a gravel road into the cemetery that he was stopped in front of. And he thought to himself, oh my gosh, I have a cell phone sitting on the passenger seat right next to me. I can get a picture of this thing. I can get video of this thing. And he turned his car into the gravel road to follow the creature who had just walked up the gravel road no more than 3 or 4 seconds prior. And he turned the car in, and the headlights went right into the cemetery, there was no creature. It didn't run off. It didn't move to the right or left. He had his high beams on. He had a full view of the cemetery. The creature simply vanished right in front of him.
Wow. That doesn't surprise me, because how many times have we heard from witnesses or people who are tracking Sasquatch prints, say in snow or mud, and the prints just stop? This is why I tend to believe there is something a little bit more special about this creature than what we actually give it credit for. We're looking for something that is almost a mammal or some sort of animal. Yet, if you take First Nations lore, they say that it could be interdimensional. It could be something a little bit more supernatural. And hearing a story like this, just for me, Eric, confirms that thought. What is your thoughts on that?
I don't know what to think at this point, to be honest. I've always been of the mindset that we're dealing with a physical animal, a terrestrial animal that just has not been discovered or classified. But then you hear these cases of high strangeness, or you investigate these kinds of cases, and you talk to a witness who's very adamant about what they saw and what this creature did. It just disappeared right in front of them, and there's no explanation as to where it went. They had full view of the cemetery with the high beams on, no longer saw it. You have to wonder, okay, is this able to camouflage itself so well that it's appearing to disappear? Is it putting such an emotional trauma on the eyewitness that they're still in shock, and to them, they saw this creature, then it's not there? Is that their mind not accepting what they're seeing? I mean, there's so many different factors that could come into play in a case like this. And you just don't know what to think. Or could the creature just actually physically dematerialized, stepped into a portal or another dimension? We just don't have enough information. But I will say these cases are out there, and they do occur. We've gotten 3 of these cases this past year that Stan informed me about. And, of course, the one I just mentioned about the young man seeing the creature that just disappeared in the cemetery without a trace. We've had 2 other cases very similar to that where eyewitnesses claim they were almost right on top of this creature, and it just disappeared. It didn't run off the road. It didn't walk away into the darkness. It was there one second and just completely gone the next. So how do you rationalize that? How do you make sense of something like that? I just don't have an answer for it.
David, I want to bring you in here on this, because you and I have talked about this subject before, about, what exactly is Bigfoot? Is there a spiritual, supernatural side to it or not? When you hear a story like this, where this gentleman is looking at it right out his window, and then in that split second, it is gone and disappeared, does that lead more towards the fact that maybe we are dealing with something more anomalous and supernatural than maybe something physical?
I know we've talked about this on the show before, Dave, and I sort of fall in the middle with a lot of these things. And there's a lot of people that are very dedicated to looking for a tangible physical creature that's just undiscovered. And then you seem to get the other extreme. People believe that there's some kind of ascended beings that have come out of spaceships or something like that. And I think that we have to take a little bit more of a practical approach, at least that's what I do, and step back and think, okay, if this is a physical, tangible creature, which I believe that it is, it may just have certain abilities or qualities that we don't completely understand, that maybe we would identify as paranormal, in that it's something that is beyond the normal. I often use the analogy, imagine the first person that ever saw a chameleon. They're looking at this lizard creature on a branch or something one moment, and then the next moment it seems to vanish. So we may be dealing with something that has abilities or as Eric says, maybe it has some kind of very advanced camouflaging similar to a chameleon, but even beyond that we just don't recognize because we haven't identified it or experienced it yet. And there's other aspects too. I mean, there's cases that indicate that these things can use infrasound, and that's something that is really still being studied. There's a lot of animals that use infrasound. Whales do, elephants, some of the large land animals, rhinoceros, even giraffes can use infrasound. And they're still studying the effects on the human body and the human mind of infrasound. So we know at a base level it can do things like change your respiratory rate. It can screw with your sense of balance, your blood pressure. But there are other possible effects too. And, I've had weird cases reported to me where I had one recently, in fact, of a fellow in Utah who he was going out to meet a friend of his. They were going to camp out for the weekend. His buddy got delayed at work or something. So this guy goes out to their campsite, a location they had been to before. And he gets his tent set up, he gets all set, puts a chair down. He sits down and he opens his cooler. He's going to just sit back and drink a beer and wait for, an hour or whatever for his friend to get there. And he said no more. He cracked that beer open and had it in his hand when he was suddenly just terrified, absolutely terrified. This is a guy who goes out camping all the time, but he said that he was so frightened that he dropped the beer, ran from the campsite, got in his truck, and drove away. And he couldn't really explain it to his friend. He couldn't explain what had happened. He just, he brushed off some excuse, I had an emergency or something. But he said that he has never in his life experienced something like that. It was as if his nervous system went haywire, and all he could think about was running away. So, when we look at that and we combine it with, curiously enough, there are a few other interesting incidents that have happened around that same area where he was camping that indicate one of these creatures may be present. We have to say, okay, what affected this man? Was it from a Sasquatch?
With the prototypical size that we hear of this creature, anywhere between 7 to 9 feet, 300 pounds and up, it's just unfathomable that this creature could just disappear in the blink of an eye. And I think that's what catches a lot of the skeptics off guard, gentlemen. And Eric, I'll turn that over to you. I mean, thinking about this story that you just said and what David just said, and the stories you've heard in the past, does it really make sense that this 7 to 9 foot creature could just, almost flip its own internal switch and go into invisible mode?
It doesn't make sense because no animal aside from the chameleon can blend into its environment so well that it appears to disappear. At least nothing that I'm aware of. It doesn't make sense for a creature that large to just vanish. And I've heard reports over the years, people say they're fast as lightning and they're so agile and they can move like faster than a deer. And they've actually kept up with vehicles driving 30, 35 miles an hour. I've heard reports of that. So logically, it doesn't make sense for a creature that size, that girth, that height to just simply vanish. It doesn't make any sense. But again, as David alluded to, this creature may have abilities that we're not aware of yet. We don't understand.
And it could be, it could be a variation on infrasound or something akin to that. Because, I had a really fascinating case, a hunter, who swears that he had one of these things in his sights, in the sight of his rifle. He was watching it, and he was trying to decide whether to fire or not. And he said the next thing he knew, he just he said it felt like he just woke up. He was standing there, the rifle was kind of dangling in his hands, and the creature was gone. But he said that momentarily he sort of lost his equilibrium. He didn't fall over, but he said he just felt dizzy. But something happened that somehow altered his consciousness. So, maybe they really aren't vanishing. Maybe they're somehow screwing with human perception.
Could this be why we don't have good photographs or good video? Because there is the perception out there, David, that maybe this creature has some sort of almost electronic jamming device like a military aircraft would have that turns itself blurry in regards to technology being around. Now, I know that sounds real strange and weird for people who are hearing it for the first time, but not everybody's a bad photographer or videographer.
Yeah, I think, I don't think there's any one reason that we have that. First of all, as I'm sure Eric will agree, there's so many photographs out there now, and so many of them are just hoaxes, many of them very bad hoaxes, people in suits and things like that. So, I constantly have all these pictures, that are sent to me and so forth, and it's either just a blur or something, that's indistinguishable that they swear there's a Sasquatch there. And, maybe some of those people experienced something, maybe they didn't, I don't know. But there's another factor, too, and it's that animals in the wild, it's really not that easy to capture good photographs in an instant. I have a camera close to me at all times, even if it's just my cell phone camera. And I've told this story before. I was driving one day in Arizona. I came around just on a back dirt road in the mountains. I came around a bend and stopped the Jeep because in the center of the road ahead of me was this beautiful lynx. And this thing was, he was crouched down. He was not focused on the Jeep. He was looking at something on the side of the road. And in the few seconds it took me to grab my camera and flip the power on to snap a shot, it was gone. Animals don't stop and pose like humans do for selfies. So, capturing a quality photograph of one, it takes a lot. And, these are creatures, when we're talking about Sasquatch, these are creatures that obviously don't want to hang around and interact for the most part. So, they're not taking their time and moseying by while you grab your cell phone and pop the camera app open.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, we see it all the time up here. I mean, the minute they get that scent of human or feel that humans are around, they dash. I mean, last year, going out for firewood, we passed a moose on the road. And by the time, and my buddy Mark was driving, and by the time he said moose, and I looked into the bush, I barely saw this creature. I said, where? He's like, it's right there in the trees. Right. It just walked in. I mean, I think we tend to forget at how powerful and fast Mother Nature's creatures are when it comes to that. And you're exactly right, David. So
yeah, and then of course we can go out there a little bit more and say that when it comes to weird phenomena, it's almost like there's something about the supernatural across the board that interferes with our collection of evidence of it, if that makes sense to you. It's not just in cryptid cases, but it's in a lot of different types of, UFOs and haunted cases and things like that. There are so many cases where equipment goes awry, or the batteries die in the camera, and all these weird things happen. And again, that makes you step back and wonder what's going on in a broader sense here.
Eric, we have about 3 minutes left before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Have you had any cases out there about these orbs showing up, like people with trail cams and everything, and all of a sudden, you think you're getting close, and the trail cam all of a sudden takes these pictures of orbs, but there's no Sasquatch there? Have you had that happen?
Well, I haven't seen any game camera photos of orbs personally, but I personally, with my own eyes, have seen these orbs in the forest on several different occasions in several different areas. And I can't explain what they are, whether they're plasma energy being let off from the ground or what they are. There's been several cases where I've been out and seen lights in the forest that I don't have an explanation for. I can't say they're Sasquatch, but they have occurred in areas where there have been Sasquatch sightings. That's the only correlation I can throw out there. I've been with multiple people who we've all seen the lights in the forest, so I'm not just the only one. I don't know what they are. I don't know where they come from. Doing historical research on the area to see if there was anything that would indicate where the lights came from or what their origin was from comes up empty-handed. So I've seen them personally in areas where there's been known Sasquatch activity. I can't say the two are correlated, but I've never seen them on game cameras per se.
David, how about you?
It's all swamp gas, man.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
Having too much to drink. Yep.
Well, I had a gentleman on this show a couple of years ago talking about that, and he actually set up a triangle of trail cams, and he had a bag of apples hanging at about 10 feet above these trail cams, and the trail cams went dead, and then all of a sudden they started taking pictures of these orbs. The next thing you know, the bag of apples was empty.
Wow.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting how that happens. Curious. I think we're all curious. But do you believe in 90 seconds, Dave, that this creature does have some sort of natural tie with these orbs people are seeing in the forest?
I don't know. I know that there are a few occasions. I know when we did an expedition around Four Corners, we saw some of these, what people describe as ghost lights. So, you know, I know at the least that there are a lot of cases where these creatures are reported in areas that exhibit a wide range of phenomena.
In that wide range, do you find that we're just looking at some sort of particles that are just being picked up by camera, or do you feel that, you know, you're seeing these with your own eyes and watching these lights happen?
Oh, some of both. I've heard both of those types of cases reported for sure.
And how about you, Eric? Do you follow up on those when people start talking orbs? Because usually the minute people start talking orbs, we start the major eye roll.
I do, because I've personally seen them. I'm intrigued by it. I don't have answers as to what they're seeing, and of course I wasn't there to see what they saw, but it is very intriguing, and it really sparks my interest when someone brings that up, that they saw ghost lights or orbs in the forest, that there wasn't a known source that was causing it.
And there's a big difference between that and capturing dust particles on night vision cameras. You know, so you know, if someone is seeing one and experiencing it, it's a very different thing.
Very true. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on tight here as we're going to go to break at the top of the hour. David Weatherly and Eric Altman are joining us. We got another half an hour with the gentlemen talking Monster Talk tonight on the mighty SOR. Stay tuned with more Spaced Out Radio coming up in hour number 3. At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hi, George and Ori here. Are you ready for UFO MegaCon, the immersion event? 7 days, 8 nights, 50 new speakers, UFO military witnesses, experiencer groups, skywatches, and so much more. Join me at UFO MegaCon, March 24th through the 30th in Laughlin, Nevada. Truly the one and only new information conference of the year. Now check it out at UFOMegaCon.com. That's UFOMegaCon.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, we hit peak woo as R. Keith Anders is back with the ET Connection. We get going at 9 p.m., make that 9:06 p.m. Eastern, Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. Hi to everyone listening in on the terrestrial radio stations, KDUM, AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, hi to everyone listening in on Revolution Radio and Deep Talk Radio. Good to have you with us. Don't forget, all of our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Sesquipedalian. Sesquipedalian is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as a clam sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Go shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store while you're listening on in, and read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Eric Altman and David Weatherly. We've been talking monsters all night long, and why wouldn't we, as we get into some Bigfoot talk. And Eric, thank you so much for being on this show for the first time. You got a big Bigfoot conference coming up in just a couple of months here. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, thanks for having me tonight. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, Dave. And David, always great to talk to you, my friend. We have an event coming up May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd. It's the third of its kind. And it's a Bigfoot festival, if you will. But it's also a charity fundraiser for some local charities in the southwestern Pennsylvania area. We've had some success in the past with it, and David has been a past guest at the last event that we held. We're hosting the event again this year. It's called the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure. And what it does is it not only educates the public, but it gives them an opportunity to get hands-on learning about Bigfoot research from folks in the field. They get the opportunity to go out on night hikes with us and participate in workshops to see how to make plaster casts or use equipment. And again, it's raising money for 3 local charities. A great lineup of guest speakers. We have 12 and a half guest speakers. And people ask, 12 and a half? Well, we have a father-son team speaking together for the first time. I mentioned Stan Gordon, my mentor and longtime friend. He'll be in attendance. Our good friend David Weatherly, who's with us tonight, will be one of our featured guest speakers. From the Society of Supernatural, which David and I are both I'm proud to be a member of. We're both members of. Dave Spinks will be joining us, as well as Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and just an all-around great lineup of speakers for the event. Plus, we're having guest celebrities come in for the event as well. We've got Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who we have mentioned on the program tonight. He'll be in attendance talking to people about their experiences, sharing casts, and his vast knowledge of the creature's anatomy and locomotion and footprints that he studied over the years. We've got Cliff Barrickman from the TV show Finding Bigfoot will be on hand, Ken Gerhard, just to name a few. So it's a great event. It's a 3-day event, 3 days, 2 nights, and we've got guest speakers, workshops, night hikes, a charity auction, a Yeti yowling contest where we invite folks to give us your best Yeti yowl or Bigfoot call, if you will, and you win a prize for that. It's going to be a fun event. We've held it 2 years in the past, had great success, a lot of positive feedback. And it's a little different from your indoor conference where you go into a lecture hall and listen to people. You're actually outdoors. We'll have vendors. We've got food trucks on hand. It's a great chance to camp, hang out with us in the outdoors, and really learn more about the subject of Bigfoot.
That sounds like a fun weekend indeed, my friend. And I believe you got the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, going to be there as well.
Yeah, our good friend Ronald Murphy's going to be there. And it's actually a strange coincidence, but Ronald and I, he was the very first case I ever investigated back in 1997. I met with he and his brother who had a terrifying possible Bigfoot experience at the home they lived at that time. And Ron now is a published author, a lecturer, investigator. He's been around the country and soon to be around the world lecturing as well. And he'll be in attendance speaking. We've got so many great guests, it's hard to name them all. But yeah, he'll be on hand, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of people have a great time. And Dave, as I mentioned, David was there last year. Despite some gloomy rain and unfortunate weather we dealt with, we still had a blast.
I was the first interview Ronald Murphy ever did.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've got a good friendship going, and he's a very good supporter of our show. We love the guy around here. He was just on a couple weeks ago, so we try to get him on as much as possible. Moving on, gentlemen, as we continue on, and David, I want to start off with you here, if you don't mind. A lot of times we hear these conversations about Bigfoot, and eventually it gets into the whole Dogman legend as well. These two creatures have never really been seen in the same area, so to speak. Do you think it is some sort of territorial issue with these two alpha creatures?
You know, a lot of researchers believe that it gets into some really murky territory with Dogman because, again, there's so much sort of blending and crossover. You start looking at some of these cases that people are reporting, these Dogman creatures, and sometimes it sounds to me like they're seeing, you know, maybe the same thing that a lot of people would identify as Sasquatch, just maybe a thinner one or, you know, physically slightly different. But then you do get these other cases that people are describing essentially what sounds like a classical werewolf. So it's, as a cryptozoologist, it's a pretty fascinating thing. And Eric and I have talked about this, in fact, on the phone before. It's kind of puzzling to look at the extreme rise in number of cases of these Dogman reports over particularly the last few years. And honestly, I'm not quite sure what to make of it. You know, I've delved into a lot of the early folklore of these types of sightings in North America from, you know, you go back to the 1700s, 1800s, and there were reports of werewolves, you know, that I've dug up out of folklore. So we've got this tradition that was carried over by European settlers, and they're talking about it here in America, but it also at times blends in with some of the Native American legends in the regions of these characters. So, you know, honestly, it's one of these things that I think that it's obviously something that's been around for a long time, but at the same time, there's a new aspect to the lore that people are just starting to dig into.
What's your thoughts on that, Eric? Because you're in that area that Butch Witkowski always talks about, that Lichen Loop type of area, yep, where there's Dogman sightings, there's Bigfoot sightings, there's this bipedal canine that's supposed to be 10 times more vicious than a regular Dogman. What do you think's going on?
I have to agree with what David said. It's really murky water. It's hard to tell if people are seeing a Sasquatch and misidentifying it. Although I've had a couple of cases I've investigated myself where the eyewitness was insistent what they saw was a werewolf, not a Bigfoot. And she never once called the creature she saw a Bigfoot. It was a werewolf to her. And Butch shared a case with me a few years ago of a couple women driving on a backcountry road up through the mountains, and they were going to hike some of the trails, and they stopped at a pull-off. And when she got out of the car, she saw a silver, grayish-colored Dogman creature, an upright walking canine that came out of the forest and stopped at a very large rock outcropping near her, and they stared at each other before it walked off into the trees. And I really thought, okay, well, maybe she just saw a silver gray Bigfoot and misidentified it, but she was insistent that it was not a Bigfoot. It had a snout, had a tail, and it was very muscular, and it looked like a dog standing up. So I don't know what to make of these cases, and David said perfectly correct. He and I talked about it, and it's puzzling how all of a sudden in the last several years we were getting sighting reports from everywhere. And this was just out in Michigan, and it was happening in Wisconsin with the Bray Road incidents that Linda Godfrey investigated and Jay Bachochin looked into. There were cases that were going on, but they weren't nationwide. Now all of a sudden you're hearing these Dogman reports popping up all over the country recently, and I don't know what to make of it.
I'm just wondering if it's part of the newfound folklore, because, I mean, Bigfoot is so passé. We've been talking about it for 50, 60 years, and Dogman really is at its peak of popularity right now.
It could be. I really don't know what this sudden fascination is, or why all of a sudden the sudden onset of these Dogman cases.
David, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. We've got a situation again where there is evidence for at least some of these sightings prior to the modern, the more modern ways. Eric mentioned our good friend and colleague, Linda Godfrey, who, of course, chronicled the Beast of Bray Road. That was a very unique sort of set of sightings that happened in that region. But outside of that, sightings of these things were very, very sporadic. And if you go back in history, that's kind of the case too. You find some very intriguing encounters here and there, but otherwise nothing like this whole modern, quote, outbreak of Dogman sightings. And, sometimes I think you have to sort of take a step back and look at it with a more critical eye and wonder exactly what's going on, because if we believe every encounter, then, there are hordes of these Dogmen running around the country all of a sudden. And, at the same time, you can't discount them all either. So it's very puzzling to look at and wonder, all right, well, why now? And, what exactly is going on with these things?
Do you believe the Dogman, David, is more dangerous than what we are dealing with Bigfoot?
Well, certainly classically, if we look at the accounts, both the modern accounts and even older ones, one that sticks in my head that I dug up at some point was an account from Pennsylvania, actually. And I think I might have told you about this one before, Erica. This was an account that was pre-Civil War, although there was no specific date attached to it. And it was occurring in the logging regions in Pennsylvania. So this is Pennsylvania Dutch country we're talking about. And what was happening was that the loggers were claiming that they were calling them werewolves, that werewolves were attacking the wagons, bringing logs down from the timber cutting areas. And their solution was that they painted hex signs on the wagons to try to prevent the attacks of these things. Now, again, you've got this European folklore that's been brought over, so they're identifying some kind of creatures, some kind of bipedal creatures that are attacking their horses, and they're seeing these things and saying, oh, they're werewolves. This is what we need to do about it. So, it's just a curious case I'm throwing in there. But to answer your question, David, it certainly seems to indicate from the bulk of the encounters we get that these Dogmen are more dangerous.
Has anybody ever reported seeing the two together that either of you heard? Eric, let's start with you.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
How about you, David? Have you heard of any type of battle between these two?
No, I haven't heard of anyone seeing these things fight or anything like that. I did talk to someone, this might have been at your event actually, who claimed that they had seen both a Sasquatch and a Dogman in the same area, not at the same time, but on separate occasions, and that they believe that this Dogman creature had shown up and ran the Sasquatch away. So, it's hard to say. We get you have to be careful and not get into some of the more fanciful ideas, I think, when it comes to this. I don't think they're having battle royales out in the forest right now. But if there really are two large creatures like this in the same territory, they would be competing apex predators.
Well, that does make me think here, because on the West Coast here, we aren't as familiar as we are with Bigfoot when it comes to Dogman, because that has been the legend of the First Nations tribes and going back in their legends and history. But we are starting to all of a sudden hear these stories cropping up every now and again, maybe one, maybe two a year, that there is something a little bit more malevolent and strange out in the forest. Do you think this creature then, Eric, is multiplying? Do you think it's spreading its wings because it's found a hell of a lot more territory out there than just the state of Wisconsin or Michigan or Ohio?
I really can't answer that. I don't know if it's just a craze. Like you mentioned earlier, Bigfoot's become passé, and now this is the new flavor of the month, if you will. I really don't know what's causing this outbreak of sightings, but there seem to be popping up more and more, and in different locations, not just Michigan or Wisconsin as they first seemed to be. We're getting them in Pennsylvania, and I'm hearing other states, Ohio, other states are having these Dogman encounters happening. And if they are truly out there and the people are really seeing this, then there has to be some kind of breeding population for them to be seen in many, many states and over the period of time they've been reported.
David, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree with Eric. It's a very difficult question to answer, because we're getting into a lot of territory that we're just kind of speculating at this point. And, for me, I watch these things and track them because I look at so many different kinds of phenomena. So, I look at different, what would we call waves of sightings or flaps, and, kind of chronicle those closely. But then you also look for consistency. As these reports continue to come in, it will be interesting to see if we consistently get reports in specific regions. Then I think we have, in a sense, more evidence to look at, and certainly more witnesses that we can maybe get some solid answers from.
We are down to our final 5 minutes with you guys tonight, and it's a show that's moved very, very quickly. And Dave, you will know, I'm proud to say I'm still one with the gnomes, thanks to your lecture.
Oh, good for you.
One with the gnomes. I'm very at peace with that right now. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. For people who have these experiences with, let's stick with Bigfoot here for a second, what should they do in your opinion? Who can they trust to talk to about it where they're going to get a great answer and not just somebody who is speculating on opinion?
Well, the first thing I would suggest before they talk to anyone is to actually write down every single thing they can remember about the incident. The time, if they remember it, the date, the weather conditions, just every single thing they can think of, how they were feeling. All of those things could prove important. And I think it's important to chronicle those before you speak to someone who might influence you one way or the other. So, when I meet with witnesses, I'll often tell them, I won't answer anything up front. I'll say, just tell me everything you remember. And, sometimes that's critically important. And then a good investigator can, of course, ask some questions that the person may not have thought to look at. And then beyond that, you just have to kind of, unless you know someone who can refer a researcher to you in your area, go with your gut. Find someone who you enjoy listening to, and get in touch with them. Or, if all else fails, there are different databases that you can submit your report to and possibly get some follow-up. But, certainly put the word out, Spaced Out Radio, contact you guys and ask for a referral. There's always options.
And how about for you, Eric? How do you like people to approach you with information?
I agree with what David said. It's important for the eyewitness to recall as much information as they possibly can about their sighting. I also encourage people not to over-embellish, because sometimes they can get carried away with their story and their story will change. But just write down and recall the facts, and write down, like David said, how you're feeling, what emotions were you experiencing. There's a lot of information we can get from those details that will help us to investigate the case further.
And David, we're going to give you the second to last word here, because I want to get to Eric to give a shout out about his Bigfoot camping trip there one more time. But let everybody know where they can find your newest book.
Newest book is Silver State Monsters, Cryptids and Legends of Nevada. Kind of an old school approach in a sense. I delve into modern sightings and folklore and everything else about the state. It's on Amazon.com along with the rest of my books, and you can find my blog at twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com.
You know what? We're going to have you back on, Dave, very soon, because we do got to talk about that book. I'm still not convinced that there's a lot of cryptids hanging out in Nevada, except maybe around Area 51 where the aliens are. But nonetheless, we're going to, next time you're on in a couple of months, because we have you tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, April 24th, if that date is good for you. It's going to be all about the legends of Nevada. I got to get into that with you. But thank you so much again, my friend, and for introducing us to Eric as well.
My pleasure.
And Eric, do me a favor. We got about 90 seconds. Use it all, my friend. Tell us about your conference, where people can get tickets, and how they can get a hold of you for information.
Well, the event is called the 2019 Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure. They can get all kinds of information, including tickets. We have about 146 tickets left before we're sold out, so you want to get them quickly, even though we're 3 months from the event. It's taking place May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd at Benner's Camping and Cabins in Farmington, Pennsylvania. That's in Fayette County in southwestern Pennsylvania. 3-day event, 2 nights, 12.5 speakers, guest celebrities. David Weatherly will be on hand giving another great lecture. You can find out more information, tickets, everything is at PABigfootcampingadventure.com. Again, that website is PABigfootcampingadventure.com. And if you have any questions about the event, you can find them there, or you can reach out to me directly at ericaltman.net.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. What an absolute pleasure. It always goes so fast, Dave, when you're on the air, and whatever special guest you bring with you, way too fast.
That's always good times. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And Eric, thank you so much. Let's stay in touch, and I hope you have an absolutely great conference this year, man. And hopefully next year, old Davey can get out there, because there's nothing better than talking a little bit of Bigfoot, my friend. Nothing better.
We'd love to have you. Thanks for having me on tonight, and thank you, David, for inviting me as well.
Absolutely, gentlemen. Coming up next, as we say thank you and good night to both David Weatherly and Eric Altman, we got the SOR Newswire coming up. Got some interesting stories coming up. And, of course, another great story out of Florida. My addiction to the Florida news continues. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hi, George Norrie here. Are you ready for UFO MegaCon, the immersion event? 7 days, 8 nights, 50 new speakers, UFO military witnesses, experiencer groups, skywatches, and so much more. Join me at UFO MegaCon, March 24th through the 30th in Laughlin, Nevada. Truly the one and only new information conference of the year. Now check it out at UFOMegaCon.com. That's UFOMegaCon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social media freedom can take care of that for you. Social media freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on the mighty SOR. And at this time of the night, we bring you the SOR Newswire. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you from the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. And now let's get to the weird, the strange, the WTF, the things that make us scratch our head and say, really? The back end of every show is where we bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine, where we deliver the news that can be found at spacedoutradio.com from our news director, Captain Gail Shirk. And tonight we have some intriguing stories, some serious stories, and, of course, one from Florida. I'm going to start off right off the bat. Big announcement up here in Canada today is the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is trying to save a little bit of face as his government is in major, major turmoil right now. But he did announce the fact that we would be spending, as Canadians, $2.05 billion over the next 24 years towards this Canadian space program, and more specifically towards the Lunar Gateway. $150 million of that will be over the next 5 years, so pretty much immediately in regards to that, to try and build up Canada's space agency a little bit more. Currently, Canada's space agency employs about 10,000 people and generates a lot of money for the community and the country. But what they want to do is they want to start building new Canadarms for the aircraft or the shuttles that will be flying people, and eventually start getting ready to have people on the moon. It's amazing how everybody is jumping on the moon bandwagon right now. Everybody wants to get to the moon. What's up there? Flat earthers will say it's just a hologram. We can't land anything on there. Heck no. But this Canada-U.S. project that will see humans return to the moon, maybe as early as 2028, 2030, it's all about building the technology now. So I think this is a good thing. I do. The more we can get up there, the more people who jump in on this boat, man, or this shuttle, I should say, to get more exploration up in space, I think that's a good thing. We're in for some exciting times. Exciting times. And hopefully my children will get to see what my parents got to see, which is the things like the Apollo moon landings, the space race, everything along those lines. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's move on here, shall we? Let's. Has anybody heard about this weird thing called Momo? I knew nothing of it until literally earlier today. And my daughter messaged me on Facebook, and she's like, Dad, we need to have a talk. I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do now? Like, my daughter she's a real old spirit, man. And she literally, like, when she talks to me, I feel like I'm being scolded, even though I'm her dad. Well, she's like, you got to keep the little guy off of YouTube. I'm like, why? Well, there's this Momo mystery going around, and a lot of people believe it's a hoax. Other people are saying that it is real, that there's kids' videos out there that are being infiltrated by this Momo challenge. All right? Now, for those of you who don't know what the Momo thing is, and I'm on a crash course on this, just like probably the majority of you, when you see this Momo creature pop up, and it's like a human with a stretched out face and bug eyes and a really weird mouth. Well, when viewers see this, apparently users are challenged to contact Momo by sending messages to an unknown number. Then they are hounded with frightening messages, often violent. And despite mounting warnings, kids are doing this, or spreading the word that it is actually happening. And anyways, some little girls and boys are looking at this thing, saying that it was involved in a Peppa Pig video on YouTube Kids, that somebody installed them, this video, this Momo thing in there. However, YouTube spokesperson has stated, contrary to reports, there have been no complaints about this actually taking part. But could you imagine, like, your 5, 6, 7-year-old child or grandchild grabbing your cell phone because they want to call this Momo character? And apparently some of the things that this Momo character is telling people to do are pretty heinous. Pretty darn heinous. Trying to find examples of it is pretty hard. But it could be everywhere from suicide on how you should kill yourself to how you can self-harm or self-mutilate yourself. Like, it's pretty disgusting that this is even going on. But nonetheless, if you have children, grandchildren, keep them away from this Momo stuff. This stuff looks pretty freaky and it's eerie, and I don't know. Just seeing the face of this Momo thing is kind of creepy and eerie. I can see where kids would get nightmares over this. So just watch yourselves. All right. Moving on. Here's a cool story. Late President George H.W. Bush had a service dog named Sully. And, well, Sully obviously was on the unemployment line after the late president passed away. But he's got a new job. And I think this is kind of cool. The Bushes donated the dog, the service dog, to start helping out Navy vets at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center to help wounded warriors. I think this is fantastic. So apparently Sully offered his paw as he pledged an oath to support, comfort, and cheer up veterans and their families. This is just fantastic. These dogs are so important to people, man. They are so important. The dog's got a new home. It's caring for people who need it. Knows what to do, very well trained. these soldiers who will be affected positively by Sully, they'll get the positivity they need to hopefully get some help and get some much needed healing. Got a new military uniform, a camo vest to authenticate his enrollment. Sully did as a service dog. I love this idea. I do. And you know what? Take the politics aside. All right? Take the politics aside and just think of the cause. The fact that the Bushes would allow the dog to continue on and move forward to help other people, because President George H.W. Bush, he was in the Navy. He was shot down in World War II. But the fact is that to allow him or them to give this dog to Walter Reed is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And that the fact that Sully will continue to spread his love and cheer, I think it's a great story. I think it's a great story that the dog gets to do what he needs to do, and that's help heal people. Really cool. Good on them. Big glitch in the Matrix, or was it just an illusion? So there was this photograph out of northern Finland on a frozen lake that was taken by some snowmobilers. And it looks like an island actually emerged from this lake. Like this giant landmass. It looks like this big giant rock wall. Like the flat earthers would be going really crazy thinking that they actually hit the edge. But no, it's not a new island on this lake in Finland, on Lake Inari. No, apparently it is all a mirage. All a mirage. It has now been dubbed the Ghost Island. It has sent Finnish social media into a frenzy. People claiming there's a glitch in the Matrix or that this photo was photoshopped. It actually looks really cool. It really does. It looks like there's a big landmass there. But no, regrettably, it has been called nothing more than a mirage. Way to break the hearts, Finland, and scientists, and skeptical people who don't believe anything. Break the hearts of them all. Why not? But nonetheless, it was a really cool photograph. You can find that online. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the news tab. The story is right there for you. And finally, there was a big standoff in Pensacola, Florida today. Apparently, this Florida man was accused of threatening his family in a 4-hour standoff. He was upset, threatening violence all over the place. But in negotiations with 33-year-old Evan Charles McLemore, they decided to try a real evil tactic, the police did. So what did the SWAT team negotiators do? They promised McLemore pizza. They said if he gave himself out, he would be able to claim a slice of pizza because he was hungry. McLemore obviously thought that was a pretty good idea. So he's like, yeah, I'll leave the house for a slice of pizza, sure. His bond is set at $105,000. He is charged with resisting an officer and aggravated stalking. So obviously he's got some anger management issues. But he loves his pizza. That's the main thing. No word of what the toppings were on this. But, seriously, if you're in a hostage situation and you're the guy holding people hostage, are you giving up for a piece of pizza? At that point, I think that's the least of my worries. Tacos? Maybe. Yeah, I think I'm out for tacos. Give me a couple of Taco Bell big burritos there, the Burrito Supremes. I'm in. Police can handcuff me as long as I got a taco to eat. It's all that matters. Thought of the day coming up. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we post a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air. Why? Well, we love the audience participation around here, so today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What is your opinion about why we haven't confirmed the existence of Sasquatch yet? A lot of good answers coming through the audience on this one. Really is. All right, let's get to it, shall we? Chris says, well, Todd Standing, psychic aliens, enough said for me. Guess he's not a lover of Todd Standing. Dale, because the governments have no intention of disclosing anything to the people. See, I'm not sure the government knows too much about Bigfoot. Or not. I'm not sure of that. The conspiratorial tinfoil side of me says, Dave, it's only obvious. It's right there. Bigfoot are seen everywhere, from California to Pennsylvania and every Canadian province in between. How can you not believe? It's a big debate in the old Dave Scott brain. Francesca, not enough convincing evidence after this many, many years. Maybe now they're dead. Stunek comes out and says, they are the world champion of hide and seek for a reason. Very true. Very true. Tyrone, Sasquatch resides in another dimension close to ours. That's why they can be seen by some, but not all. Interesting theory. I think there's something to that. I'm more on the supernatural side than the physical side. I made no bones about that. Kevin, because they can move from 3D to interdimensional, like walking through a door. They are also telepathic, so they ping you to find out what your true intentions are. If you are a threat to their children, they will act accordingly. I, however, have had contact several times by Sasquatch, 4 weeks ago, in fact. It takes much to earn their trust. Okay. Brett, they're interdimensional. Michael Freehawk Polani, former guest, agrees. Heather, the government knows all about Bigfoot, Dogman, and real humanoid giants, aliens, etc. This, along with UFOs, is their little secret. They won't disclose the truth about our existence, where we come from, how spiritually powerful we are, the history of humanity's creation and evolution and ascension, and the Earth's place in the cosmos. They want to control us. Admitting that Sasquatch is real is basically opening up that can of worms of truth that they've spent all this time keeping from us. Everything is all connected. Admit one, admit them all. They call the government Big Brother. I think it's more like my ex-boyfriend. Denny. Or is that deny? I think it's deny, actually. Deny. We'll leave it at that. Powerful statement by Heather, though. David, I used to think they were just an unknown primate running around in the woods. Over the years, based on the experiences I have heard, I've come around to the idea that, yes, they are that, but they are also more than that as well. They are interdimensional, for a lack of a better word. Kevin and Kevin's beard. Two separate entities. We have... No one believes because of all the hoaxes. Very true. Tim, interdimensional, like being seen coming out of portals at Skinwalker Ranch. Uncle Dale and his power stash. This is a vacation planet for Sasquatch, and their campgrounds are protected by the corporation running the resorts. There are subtle technologies that make humans tend to avoid these areas. When the occasional human does see too much, they are abducted, memory wiped, and provided several layers of screen memories. The top level is, I took a nap. And if the abductee breaks through that illusion, they start to get flashes of terrifying procedures done to them, and of course, some just disappear. Bill, they shapeshift to appear like and blend in with their surroundings. Very, Very intriguing. Steve says he keeps shaving his beard to blend in, of course. Wow. I think that was a shot at me shaving my beard. Joe, flat Bigfoot theory. When someone spots a Bigfoot, they turn sideways so you can't see them. Very plausible. Bobby, only a body will suffice for the mainstream normies. Until that happens, no amount of hairy scat will convince any of the skeptics. Evan, they don't exist. Yeah, they do. Andrew, as a society, we're not ready to accept that these creatures are real, period. It would hurt the national parks. It's easier to look the other way and say there's nothing to worry about. Michael, Skamania, Colorado, Washington, and Whitehall, New York have ordinances protecting Bigfoot and have for several years. Most evidence is sightings, prints, casts, and hair samples. Science wants a body. Kelly, I believe that Sasquatch was going to confirm themselves all to us. However, Todd Standing went and poo-pooed all over that idea, so they are still the undefeated world champion of hide-and-seek. The Sasquatch. It's a good place to end it. Want to say a big thank you to Captain Shirk for doing up our news tonight on the SOR Newswire. Really appreciate that. Brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Big thanks also to David Weatherly and Eric Altman for coming on the show to talk Bigfoot all night long. Remember, if you're in Pennsylvania in May, look up Eric's Bigfoot conference. It sounds like it's going to be a good one. Tomorrow night on the program, we get all extraterrestrial. Yes, get your peak woo on as we are going to R. Keith Andrews and the ET Connection, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. A big thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. And a special thank you to everybody in the chat rooms tonight and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio for making it a fun evening. Remember, Spaced Out Radio is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures. So make sure you use it wisely, space travelers. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. Because we own the night. We need you to take us home. Good night.